Last night, Will was like, I see a glimmer on the horizon.
There was one.
I see the end of the shutdown coming. I feel it. He started to send us texts that said, in the air speaks of the end of the shutdown, a bipartisan effort. And then we wake up to the Democrats going, not so fast.
It started earlier in the week. There were negotiations finally between the Republicans and Democrats, as there had been really no conversation for the entire first month of this shutdown between the two parties. However, it looked like they were getting close to a situation where they would be able to get the government reopened. It was going to be a very Washington-style technical thing where governments reopen only until end of December or January. But then they had also 3 appropriations bills. They were minibus bills, which would fund certain parts of the government for much longer so that we wouldn't.
What was the word there?
Minibus. There's the omnibus bill, which is like all encumbering and inclusive.
This is like a Volkswagen.
Right, but then you have the minibus, which is like certain sectors that get longer funding. But then the continuing resolution would basically put them in a similar spot at the end of January or end of December, but it wouldn't be all of government. Like things like the military, the FAA, things of those nature would still run, because right now, starting today, they're reducing the air traffic by 4%, and then increasing that by 1% each day until they top out at 10% next week.
That's over 800 flights canceled today.
Now imagine more than double that by 6 days from now, when it reaches 10% if they haven't reopened the government.
Everybody just got to settle back, wait for the end times. It feels like that's what's happening. Crack a cold Diet Coke and let it ride, because who knows what's going to happen here.
So the Democrats and Republicans were getting close to this.
It's got Santa on it.
To be able to move this forward, and they thought maybe they could have the government reopen by this weekend. But there's a couple senators who got involved. We had Senator Chris Murphy from Connecticut and Senator Bernie Sanders, who during a 2-hour caucus meeting between the Democrats yesterday, they said it turned into somewhat of a pep rally where they started encouraging each other to hold strong. And we have some sound on this.
Why wait?
And they believe that they now have the upper hand, and they believe these victories in blue states that they saw this week were a mandate and a pushback. And I called it. I said they were going to see this as a mandate that they can hold strong and try to get more. Now, instead of saying we want to get what we want, they're saying, hey, sky's the limit. We should hold out for more.
The Democrat won the mayor in New York. The Democrat won the governor of New Jersey. That's a mandate. I'm sorry. I know that y'all are like the percentiles. In what world did you think they weren't going to win? Okay, this is where it gets so Washingtonian and ridiculous.
It's about to start manifesting in different ways for people that may not have a government job or a job that has government contracts, or that see this manifesting as we're very close to Thanksgiving, one of the busiest travel times in the country. And the TSA and FAA are now having to cut back on the amount of flights that can be handled. Yeah. So that is going to be a real pain point for every American. And this kind of embodies what the Democrats in the Senate have kind of taken up, as Bernie Sanders and the other senator, Chris Murphy from Connecticut, kind of rallied the Democrats together and said, no, now is not the time to cave or to change. Let's go ahead and play what Dick Blumenthal from Connecticut had to say, bite 5.
I think that there is no reason to surrender now, every reason to stand firm.
But there is another interesting caveat today. One, the Senate's going to vote for the 15th time today on the clean CR just to reopen it and go back to status quo. That's expected to fail.
Status quo, by the way, as we've all been saying, which has been the same since the Biden administration.
Exactly. So it's just there's no Republican priorities. There are no Democrat priorities. There are, at the same time, both Republican and Democrat priorities, because it's just maintaining the same level of funding that it was for another year. So when you look at this, though, this is another interesting caveat, because the Democrats are trying to push their caucus into saying, hey, look, we won these elections. We've got the mandate. Let's fight. Let's get more out of this. But the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services actually put out their pricing expectations just a few days ago. and what that would look like. Because one of the big things that they've been pushing is that, this is going to be a huge spike in the premiums of people that are on Obamacare plans. They're in Obamacare open enrollment that goes for a couple months to be able to renew your health insurance. And as some of these subsidies expired, which is what the Democrats have been pushing for to get a renewal of that as a part of this, they were saying it is going to astronomically increase the pricing of individual plans under Obamacare. When the numbers came out about actually what they're going to be, it wasn't as drastic an increase as the Democrats had been selling. So it wasn't this catastrophic quadrupling of prices that people are all of a sudden not going to be able to afford this.
Right.
As a matter of fact, the average plan per month for the people that were needing it the most was about $50 a month, which is only between $10 and $13 more than it was last year. So the expiration of these subsidies didn't have as dramatic an effect on the pricing
that's not nothing.
as the Democrats had been selling. However, they were selling it as it was going to be catastrophic, quadruple. It was going to be so much that no one would be able to afford it. Yes, I understand that for people that are on a fixed income or need that in a certain way, that $13 extra can be something that could be a difficulty. And yes, it is a subsidy expiring. However, for the Democrats, that being a point where they had people rallied around them and saying they are fighting for something that's good, many people look at that and see that not as a big enough reason to be holding the government hostage in the way that they are. They've had it shut down for the longest amount of time in history. Think about now all of the people that are federal employees that are now in need of assistance that weren't before this. They are creating an economic catastrophe for so many people, for so many families, for so many stresses added to the lives of federal employees. And that is starting to seep into the realms of society that didn't even really have these touch points with government services or things on the daily basis. Now we're starting to see that. But yet you're still hearing them say, now is not the time for us to back down. In fact, we have to keep fighting. We have to try to get more. And as that comes out, I don't know that that's the best winning strategy. They may think that it is, but if you now look at this and say, no, we can get more, we can fight harder, we don't have to negotiate. When you turn into that page and what's been shut down as it gets more into society with travel and things of that nature, I think that could backfire much worse than just the shutdown in general.
What drives me insane is this lack of bipartisan support, that they can't get things done because you've decided Trump bad and the other side says all Democrats are bad too. We can't find any middle ground. We couldn't just pass that one thing that said SNAP could be funded. We couldn't pass that one thing that said the FAA could be funded, the 2-page bills that had nothing else on it. We couldn't get that done. How is that possible? How are we that one-side-minded that we cannot get very simplistic things that are agreed upon by everyone to get done? It's really frustrating, and it really just makes you lose hope in that system a lot. It makes you just go, okay, what's the point? What are we doing here?